During this podcast we will discuss the influence of ecolabeling on consumers. In this video we start to explain why companies use ecolabeling. Then the problems, after that an interview, and at last a conclusion and solution. A lot of companies today are asking, can we be green, clean and profitable all at the same time? Producers face a big challenge here. Sustainable products need to find their way towards the consumer. The most classical approach in promoting such products is by ecolabeling. The main aim of ecolabeling is to provide information to consumers about the relative environmental quality of products. There are some problems with ecolabeling. We listed 3 problems. The first one is the high cost of creating an ecolabel. The second one faces the problem that there are too many ecolabels. But the biggest problem is competing with greenwashing claims. In this podcast we will only discuss the third one.
According to a study released from TerraChoice, it's found that 99% of labels and claims are false or misleading. We invite TerraChoice President Scott McDowell to give his opinion about greenwashing. Good morning.
Morning.
What contains the concept of greenwashing?
Greenwashing is environmental whitewashing. It's making claims about a product with respect to its environmental benefits or impacts that are either false or misleading.
You also come up with the 6 sins of greenwashing in contrast to ecolabels. We walk through them and you can explain what it contains. The sin of hidden trade-offs.
The hidden trade-off, let me give you an example. We buy toilet tissue for our homes or paper towel, and it's very positive if that toilet tissue or paper towel comes from a sustainably harvested forest. But when a marketer tells you just about sustainable harvesting practices, they're not telling you anything about the milling practices, which can be very damaging to the environment. And so I'm like a magician drawing your attention to my left hand so you can't see what my right hand is doing. Consumers need information about the whole life cycle of a product.
Sin of no proof.
Sin of no proof is, I think, self-explanatory. Consumers are highly educated these days, particularly on issues like environment, where they're trying to protect their kids and their families as they feed them breakfast and shampoo them and clean them. And they're owed evidence. And so when I make an environmental claim as a marketer, I need to be able to substantiate it, if not on the label, then at my company website, or by relying on a third-party certification like Ecologo or Green Seal. And I need to demonstrate and make the evidence transparent to my audience.
The sin of vagueness.
The sin of vagueness is a very popular one. Natural this, eco-friendly that.
Green that.
Right, green trinkets, eco widgets. They're appealing, but in and of themselves they're utterly meaningless. All natural is a great example. Arsenic is natural. Cyanide is natural. I don't want any of these things in my shampoo, but it's quite true to say they're natural.
The sin of irrelevance.
Sin of irrelevance, we found one particularly common example of this, and it has to do with a material called CFCs, or chlorofluorocarbons, which is an ozone-depleting substance. Was once used commonly in aerosols, in shaving cream, in household sprays of all types. Happily was banned by law 20 years ago, but on your store shelves today at the grocery store, you will still find aerosols claiming proudly, as if it's a competitive advantage, that they are CFC-free. Of course they're CFC-free. It's illegal to have CFCs.
The sin of fibbing.
The sin of fibbing is just outright dishonesty, and in our study we found this most commonly when products claim to be certified by an outside organization and simply weren't.
The sin of lesser of two evils.
Well, this goes to an interesting issue, which is whether or not the consumer needs this very product in the first case. Our organization has been approached to certify through Ecologo and assist organic tobacco, for example. We thought that although if one must smoke, one ought to choose organic, arguably. The environmental consequences of smoking as a whole, environmental and health consequences, are so large that it would be the lesser of two evils. And we don't think consumers ought to be misled into choosing between the lesser of two evils without understanding the full context completely.
And tell us, what should consumers look for?
Consumers, the reason we did this study is to put simple tools in their hands. They need to bear these 6 sins of greenwashing in mind, or they need to look for third-party certifications like Ecologo or like Green Seal.
Thank you, Scott McDougall. We appreciate your time.
To make eco-labeling an appropriate marketing strategy, first we have to distinguish different types of consumers. We assume there are 4 types of consumers. There are the behavioral greens, the think greens, potential greens, and true browns. The behavioral greens feel responsible for the environment and are familiar with eco-labeling. They can distinguish eco-labeling of greenwashing.
The think greens recognize the phenomenon of eco-labeling, but they distrust eco-labels because of the amount of greenwashing claims.
Potential greens are the largest group. They want to be environmental friendly, but they don't see the difference between greenwashing and eco-labeling.
And finally, true browns don't seem to have any interest in green products. At the end of this podcast, we can make a conclusion that greenwashing has a negative effect on the reliability of eco-labeling. So eco-labeling isn't an appropriate marketing strategy.
Finally, we made a solution. Eco-labeling can only be an appropriate marketing strategy if, first, claims and greenwashing are illegal. Second, companies should focus on think greens and potential greens, since true browns won't have any interest in green products, and behavioral greens are already convinced. Third, it should be clear for consumers what eco-labels mean and which are reliable, so eco-labels must be more transparent. And at last, the cost to get an eco-label should be reduced.